The Great Helm is perhaps one of the most iconic and easily recognisable helmets from the medieval ages, a powerful symbol often associated with knighthood or the Crusades. It marked a milestone in armour making technology and paved the way for the evolution of helmets for generations to come. I'm Joel Hunter, this is my workshop, and join me in the process as we turn one of these great helms into a real living artifact from raw shapeless steel to its final finished form. Before we get into making the helmet and the actual process where we pick up the hammers and start hitting the steel, we need to go back in time to history to learn a little bit about the background and the context of the piece that we're actually recreating. This helmet is the Dargen Helm, which dates from about 1250 to 1270 CE, and it's one of the earliest surviving, iconic great helms that we even have anywhere in the world. While it's not the most complex of helmets, hard lines and its sinister islets exude a spirit of raw power. You just can't help but be intimidated by its menacing presence. As an armourer, I find the best way to experience these artifacts of history, these works of art, is to engage in the process of actually recreating and bringing them to life. So let's jump in for the first phase of that process with designing. So, what we're doing here is checking that the measurements of the pattern that we're about to trace onto our steel are the same as the ones that we have on the profile here, and that the proportions of our profile and our pattern reflect the same proportions that we have in the original helmet that we're trying to copy. And we've got these pictures here in the workshop so that we can kind of work with the original helmet. Because what we are trying to do as an armourer, as an artist, I'm trying to capture the original helmet and its personality. And that comes down to the little things, to the number of degrees of angle of the sides and the attention to detail, a few millimeters here and there. And all those things are encapsulated in these profiles that we've drawn up and in the patterns that we're going to draw onto the steel. When designing a piece of armor, it's important that you take your cues and your instruction from the original sources. Because as an armorer, your reputation is bound up in the work that you do. Your skill, your name, it's all tied together. Alright, now that our patterns have been checked according to our originals, we can now trace them out onto our material. In this case, mild steel, 2mm mild steel, which is a low carbon steel comparable to what they would have been using in the 13th century. An interesting thing to keep in mind is that for the armourers back in the day, they had to work with much smaller, more expensive pieces of steel, and the mistakes that they made were incredibly expensive for the armourers who were making the piece. Oh yeah, let's do this thing, mate. We've in the soil, tangled this cord up low. Make sure you keep your workspace clean and in order to avoid frustrating little situations like that. feels intense, man. Context makes such a massive difference. When something is expensive and risky, you respect it in such a different way. So there's no shortcuts in the process. You need to start strong and you need to start right, because that's going to translate directly to the final product that you actually end up producing. So now that the curl has been hammered off from the shear, we're going to use the grinder, the linisher, to grind off any sharp edges or burrs that might be left and bevel that edge and just refine the shape of our steel so that we're starting with true lines when we begin our shaping. Armor reproduction today is an extension of a craft, a discipline, and artistry stretching back thousands of years. Built on the techniques and skills forged by real people in a real time for a real purpose. The work of an armorer defends a warrior in his hour of need, and that is why understanding the process is so key in learning about the armor itself. In this way, I aim to reflect the same integrity and design as the historical originals. And even though I'm using some modern tools and equipment to enhance the process of reproducing armor, the principles are the same. This will be a helmet engineered to resist the trial and test of war. And that is the end of episode 1. We learned some history about the Great Helm, where it fits into history. We did some designing and some patterning, and then put that pattern on some steel and cut it out and deburred it so we don't cut ourselves. And now we're ready for the next stage of the process, which will be shaping. And we will be putting some personality and shape into that flat steel.